I'm a lawyer and we're going to sort through all the evidence surrounding the DrDisRespect ban. We're going to separate fact from rumor. I'm going to teach you how to weigh the different strengths of each piece of evidence like a lawyer so that you can decide for yourself what you believe. I'm going to go through both sides of the case, so see if you can keep an open mind until you hear all the evidence. It's going to be a wild ride, so buckle in.
What's been driving me crazy is that Twitch paid out Doc's contract in full. That makes no sense, because why would they do that if they were completely justified in banning him in the first place? Now, some people say they don't want the headlines associated with their company, but I don't think the Doc would have called their bluff on this. He would have looked horrible.
Okay, I'm a trial lawyer, meaning my job is to evaluate evidence, present evidence that is reliable to a jury, and then argue it. I know the rules of evidence don't apply in the court of public opinion and emotional reactions, but we need some common guidelines here. Why not take cues from the evidence code? I'll start with the definition of evidence that every judge gives to every jury in every trial in California. Evidence is the sworn testimony of witnesses, the exhibits admitted into evidence, and anything else I, the judge, told you to consider as evidence. Okay, so right there we learn a person's account, their statements are considered evidence. I understand this isn't a trial and no one's testified under oath, sure, but this is what goes through my mind when I evaluate the evidence of an allegation. In a trial, before we take into account someone's statement, we have to figure out the foundation of that statement. If you've ever heard in court someone saying, "Objection, lacks foundation," it means that the witness saying these things hasn't yet established whether or not they know the facts they're talking about. One great example is Cody Connors, who launched this whole nuke a couple weeks ago. He tweeted, he was banned because he was sexting minors. Remember? That guy. Well, it turns out that guy's tweet lacks foundation because he never actually saw or knew anything for himself. It's also hearsay because the things he did hear, the conclusions, were secondhand from someone else. So we'd need to hear from that someone else directly. On top of that, Corey's been known to be shilling the reason for Doc's ban to sell tickets to his band shows, and because no one wants to see him otherwise. So his credibility is basically like one shot right now. But Legend, the Doc admitted to sexting a minor. What the hell are you going on about? Did he though?
I know a guy who was pulled over for speeding last year by the cops, and he saw the cop in the rearview mirror making moves. If you know, you know. And so he pulled over early. When the cop went up to his window, the guy told the officer, "Hey, I know I was speeding. I didn't want to be trouble, so I'm trying to be chill and I pulled over early." The cop asked him, "Did you have anything to drink?" He said, "Yeah, I had one drink, but I'm not under the influence and I'm not above the legal limit." The cop arrested him right then and there, put him in the back of the police car, and they took him to a judge. The judge said, "You're guilty of a DUI and we don't need to see any numbers." The guy said, "What about my breath machine test results?" He said, "Doesn't matter. You already admitted to it when you said you were speeding." Now, did the guy really admit to driving under the influence, or did he just admit to speeding and having a drink?
Now, what's wrong with that scene? My guy did admit to it, but what exactly did he admit to? Speeding. He also admitted to drinking, which is wrong and stupid and reckless and immoral, just like the Doc. But did he admit to being over the legal limit? Where's the other proof? Same thing with the Doc. He admitted to doing something immoral. But let's look at his tweet and see if he admitted to sexting a minor. Stop, Legend! You know you can't trust the Doc's tweet. He's gonna paint himself in the light that makes him look the best, right? Absolutely. And that's exactly why it's helpful to us. Because we know he has every incentive to lie, twist, minimize in this tweet. So we can be sure the things he says are the bare minimum of the truth. But the question specifically is, did he admit to sexting a minor? Let's look closely. The Doc says, were there Twitch whisper messages with an individual minor back in 2017? The answer is yes. Were there real intentions behind these messages? The answer is absolutely not. These were casual, mutual conversations that sometimes leaned too much in the direction of being inappropriate, but nothing more. Nothing illegal happened, no pictures were shared, no crimes were committed, I never even met the individual. Now the rest of this is pretty much argument. He's trying to convince you what he wants you to conclude. Nowhere in this post does he admit to sexting a minor here. Now, to be fair, the things he does admit to are bad on several levels. He's admitting to almost everything except that final nail in the coffin. And like I said, this will all be true, but it will be minimum. And you gotta give that a lot of weight, keeping in mind that he has every incentive to skirt around admitting the actual crime while still admitting as much as he possibly can. But this means we have to look at other evidence surrounding this admission to put that final nail in the coffin. And that evidence is kind of split. First, we have the 3 sources from Bloomberg who say they had direct knowledge of the whispers. They had the foundation. And they all 3 say the messages were sexually explicit. That's pretty bad, 3 people. Then we have one source in Rolling Stone magazine from Slasher who says they also have direct knowledge and that the doc knew the minor was a minor and continued to send sexually explicit messages. This is really pretty bad, okay? You got 4 sources saying they're sexually explicit messages. And they're all forms of direct evidence. That means the person is telling us what they saw with their eyes. It's pretty damning. Now, a court would say if you're trying to evaluate conflicting evidence, you've got to decide what evidence, if any, to believe. It says very clearly, do not simply count the number of witnesses who agree or disagree on a point and accept the testimony of the greater number of witnesses. On the other hand, do not disregard the testimony of any witness without a reason or because of prejudice or desire to favor one side or the other. You've got to figure out if these sources convince you. But what if I told you these 4 ex-Twitch employees aren't the only ones who saw Doc's messages to the minor? In fact, someone outside of Twitch saw those same messages all the way back in 2020. And that someone else who saw it might not exactly agree with the characterizations of these chats. This video is getting a little long, so click here if you want to know who else saw the Doc's whispers back in 2020 and what they did about it.